from the concerned authorities. Once we took permission to perform these things, it will no longer become illegal activity. It will no longer become unethical one. It will comes under legal part. It will become as ethical one. Here you may raise a question like, who will give us permission to perform hacking on their network? To answer this question, let me give some more information related to hacking. Hackers perform hacking activities with different motives, like gaining access to someone's personal information to defame him, or to create some kind of financial damage to our nations and governments or to any individual, or to get access to government secret information and send that shell okay, and sell that information to the enemy or country to get some kind of financial benefit. Okay, like this, they will have different motives behind performing hacking activities. For this purpose, governments and our nations are spending billions of dollars of money each year in cyber security. How they are spending that much amount of money? To recruit cybersecurity professionals or to purchase cybersecurity tools that will help them to conduct different attack activities on their network, to identify weaknesses and to continuously monitor and analyze the network traffic to identify if they are under any attack. Let's say if they are under any attack, they need to have a rescue plan that will help them to get out of that attack as soon as possible. To perform all these activities, it is required a lot of resources required and lot of time is required and lot of manpower is required. Obviously, for all these things, lot of money is required. So to perform all these activities, who will help them? Organization needs someone help, right? To do all these kind of activities. They cannot do on their own. So here comes the part of ethical hackers. We, as a good people, ethical hackers will help the organizations to secure their systems and to safeguard their secret information. Okay, the organizations and governments will recruit these ethical hackers as cybersecurity professionals. Oh, this is on the same slide, sir. Hacking definition. I didn't move a slide. Okay. Okay. So organizations and governments will recruit cybersecurity professionals and they will give permission to them to conduct different tests on their network. So these kind of people, these kind of activities in the organization level, we call them as penetration testing. In penetration testing, cybersecurity professionals conduct different attack activities on the network to identify if there are any weaknesses present in the network. If they identify any weaknesses, they will create a report based on their findings and they will submit that report to the higher authorities. So the higher authorities will take necessary action to close the loopholes and to tighten their network security for not allowing outsider threats enter into the organization to create some kind of damage. I hope you understand what is hacking, what is ethical hacking, and who will give us permission to perform hacking activities on their network, right? So right now there are a lot of cybersecurity positions are available out there. There are a lot of unfilled cybersecurity positions are there. In India itself, there are more than 1 million positions are there. Why? Because nowadays only people are slowly showing their interest in the information security domain. I am very glad that you made your first step towards information security by attending for this demo session. So why people are showing interest? Because of the cyber crimes that are happening in our day-to-day life. You can see different news related to cyber crime. Okay, so every year the cyber crime rate is increasing and the amount of money the governments are investing on these cyber crimes is getting bigger and bigger. It is estimated to reach $6 trillion at the end of 2021. Okay, so in this course, I will help you to understand what are different techniques that hackers use to perform different attack activities on organizations or on individuals, so that it will be helpful for you to make yourself secure and to defend yourself for not becoming victim of those attacks. You may ask question like, who should learn hacking skills? Are there any requirements to learn hacking skills? There are no requirements to join for this session, and apart from you know how to turn on your system and you know how to use system in a basic level. That's all the requirement. And anyone who are interested to learn hacking skills, or anyone who wanted to add new skills to their profile, or anyone who want to pursue their career in the information security, all can join this course and acquire hacking skills. And whoever performs different activities on online in their daily life, it is recommended to have minimum knowledge on information security domain. Why? Because nowadays we don't have to go to shopping malls to do shopping. We don't have to go to banks to perform transactions. We don't have to go to movie theaters 1 hour before movie starting to stand in line and to purchase the tickets. Why? Because we can do all these activities and more than this from online from our home itself. For to perform all these activities, we will register for different services and we will provide some of our information, our name, our bank details, our credit card details, our debit card details. In social networking sites, we will provide some of our personal information also. If you don't have proper awareness about what kind of information you are sharing and what kind of threats it may possess, you will be some way prone to these kind of attacks. So in this CH course, you will understand what are different techniques attackers use, how to protect yourself from those attacks, and what kind of information you should share and what kind of information you shouldn't share, etc. All those things you will get awareness about those things, right? So that's the basic information that I would like to provide about hacking. With those things said, let's move on to our course content. Do you have any doubts up to this part? If you have any doubts, please type them in the chat. If you don't have any doubts, please type one in the chat. So I'll proceed to further section. Okay, thank you for the response, students. Right now, we are dealing with CH version 11 course. In this CH version 11, we have 20 modules. These are the 20 modules that I have listed here. And each and every module deals with different concepts, and you will learn different techniques in each and every module. This CH course acts like a basic and fundamentals for information security. So it will give you basic knowledge on different areas of information security like network security, web application security, wireless network security, mobile hacking security, okay, IoT hacking, etc. And you may ask me like, sir, do I need to have any programming knowledge to attend for this session? There is no programming knowledge required for this course. It is a basic course. We don't code anything or we don't build any tools. We use the tools that are already developed by someone else, and we try to understand what is the working mechanism behind these tools, how they work, how they collect information, okay, how they perform attacks. We try to understand the background concept and we perform the attacks, right? Okay, that's all about course content. I will give you 2 minutes time. Please have a look at these 20 modules. Next, I will proceed to explaining each and every module in detail. We start our course with the first module, Introduction to Ethical Hacking. In this section, in this chapter, I will give you a handshake with information security, like providing information about what is hacking, who is hacker, what are different classes of hackers are there, why we classify them like that, and what is the basic terminology that we need to understand to better understand the concepts in the next level, and what is the methodology that hackers use to perform any hacking activity, and what are the information security elements like availability, okay, authenticity, non-repudiation, integrity, etc. With those things, I will close the theory part related to first chapter. Throughout the course, in each and every module, we will have minimum theory related to that particular chapter. The theory will help you to understand what you are going to learn in that particular chapter and what we are expecting from the practicals that we do in that chapter. Okay, we'll have at least 10 to 15% of theory part in each and every chapter, and majority of the times 80 to 85% of the time we will focus on practicals and we try to understand how things work. Okay, so whatever the practicals we discuss in this course, performing those practicals on other system or any live domain is illegal or not permitted to do them. That's why we need to create our own lab environment. We need to do practicals in that environment only. For that purpose, in the lab setup section, I will demonstrate you how to create our own lab setup, how to create our own lab environment. To create that one, we'll take help of a free tool called VirtualBox. We can make use of VirtualBox or VMware also. So to use full features of VMware, we need to pay, okay? But VirtualBox is free tool. So I will demonstrate setup in the VirtualBox. So where to download VirtualBox, from where you can download that one, how to install VirtualBox in the Windows machine, I will demonstrate, and how to install different operating systems. This VirtualBox will allow us to install multiple operating systems and to run them along with our main OS. If you observe my system, my host machine, my main operating system is Windows 10. In the Windows 10, I am also running Parrot Security operating system, Windows 7 machine, and some other target machine like Metasploitable 2. How I am able to run? With the help of VirtualBox. So how to install these operating system in the VirtualBox, I will demonstrate in the lab setup section. Once setting up our lab is over, we will move on to the next part, Linux CLI basics. Here, EC Council suggested that to use Parrot Security operating system as our attacking machine. So we will perform different attack activities with the help of Parrot Security. Why? Because Parrot Security comes with the tools that we majority of the times use already installed in it. Okay, so it is a Linux based operating system. So to perform the practicals in the Parrot Security, we need to have minimum Linux basics. If you already know how to use Linux, what is Linux, how it is structured, it is well and good. If you don't know how to use Linux, what is Linux, you don't need to worry. In the Linux basics section, I will explain you how the Linux is structured, how the Linux directory structure looks like, okay, where different kinds of files reside, and what are minimum commands that we need to have awareness about to use the Linux in a best way. Okay, I will try to make yourself comfortable inside the Linux. It will make your learning process easy. Okay, so here, how to list out the files. If I want to enter into any directory, what are the commands that I need to use? If I read any file, what is the command that I need to use? I'll demonstrate everything in the Linux basics section. Next, we will move on to an important topic called anonymity. Whatever you visit online, you can be easily identified by a numerical number called IP address. If you perform some activity that is not allowed in your country, cybersecurity professionals can easily track back to you by using your IP address. Then what we need to do? We should hide our IP address. We should spoof our IP address. We should hide our identity. How we can do that? By using anonymity techniques like proxy and VPN. So what is proxy? What is VPN? How to configure them in our system to spoof our IP address? I will clearly demonstrate them in the anonymity section. With those things, we will end our first chapter there and we will move on to the second chapter. Do you have any doubts? How? Okay. Yeah, please put your questions in the chat. I will respond to them one by one. How to bounce our IP? Okay. We can use a service called TAR. The TAR service will help us to provide multiple IPs. Okay. From request to request, the IPs will change. It will make us, we are requesting that information from different locations. So I will discuss what is star and how to use that in the anonymity section, right? And why we are using Parrot OS instead of Kali. Previously, we used Kali only up to CH version 10. From CH version 11, EC Council is suggested to use Parrot Security OS. Both operating systems are kind of same. They will have same tools. Whatever we use in this course, you can use both. You can use any of them, Kali or Parrot OS, as for your comfort. Okay, the same two operating systems construct in the same way. It contains same tools. What's our Parrot requires more hardware specifications. So it is up to your choice, sir, what to use. You can use any one. From Kali also, you can perform the practicals that I will discuss in this course, right? You can use as per your requirement or as for your comfort, whichever you are comfortable, you can use that one. Okay. Does anyone have any other doubts related to this particular chapter or up to this part? Okay. If you want me to continue, proceed, please type one in the chat. I will proceed further. Thank you for the response, students. Next chapter is introduction. Okay. Next chapter is footprinting and reconnaissance. Let's say you have an interview for company and you attended for the interview. In the interview, interviewer asked you, what do you know about our company? When that question arises, if you already done some kind of research about that company, like who, when the company is established, who is the CEO of that company, okay, what kind of projects they previously completed and what kind of projects they are right now taking up. If you already done some kind of research about that company, you can present that information beautifully in front of that interviewer and you can get good impression, right? So the same way, here also, before performing hacking activities, it is required to have the information about target. So in this chapter, we'll try to collect as much information as possible about the target. Okay. In the theory part, I will explain what is active footprinting and what is passive footprinting. And coming to practicals, we will use different techniques, different tools to collect information related to the target. First, suppose I have a target domain. I want to identify subdomain information related to the target domain. How can I do that? Here, I will take help of a tool called Sublister to do that activity from my side. So let me demonstrate that one here. You don't need to worry about what I am executing here right now. When time comes, when I'm dealing with this particular tool in the classroom, I will clearly explain what I'm doing. Okay, you don't need to worry about these things. Please just sit back and relax and enjoy the session. If you can see here, when I executed the command, the tool going online from my side to identify the information related to Infosys.com. So whatever the information it identifies, it will provide that information on my terminal screen. I can use that information for further attack activities. Give it some time, it will definitely give the information. Execution is done, and if you see on my terminal, it provided me a lot of information, subdomain information related to Infosys.com. I can save these results into a file and I can use this information for further attack activities. Like this, there are different tools available to perform different kinds of activities to get information about the target. I will demonstrate how to collect email information related to the target. And if we have email ID or phone number related to the target, how to identify his IP address using IP lookup, I will explain. And if I want to get basic information related to the target domain, like who is the owner of that domain and in which server it is hosted, what are the server details related to that particular domain, I will explain by using a concept called who is lookup. Sometimes Nation will reveal what kind of technologies they are using or what kind of softwares they are using in their Nation through job postings. So how to identify that information, I will demonstrate through job sites footprinting concept. For suppose, as the organizations are becoming aware about these kind of cyber attacks, they are not revealing some sensitive information related to their organization nowadays. But they may reveal that information previously. So how to look for that information, I will demonstrate by using Internet Archive concept. And at the end, we will also discuss something called Google Docs. Google Docs are nothing but special search strings that are provided by Google. So they will help them to filter out the results and to get the required information only. Let me demonstrate one thing here. For suppose tomorrow you need to provide a demonstration. Okay, you need to give a presentation on particular chapter, but you don't have any information related to that particular concept. Then what is the option that you have? You will go to Google and search for that information. It will provide a lot of information related to that particular chapter, but you only get the information related to that one, not the other information. Here I can make use of a Google Doc called file type. Here in the Google search bar, I will provide file type. This is the search string provided by Google. So we can search for different file formats related to that particular chapter, that particular concept. First, suppose, let's say the concept is Internet of Things. If I search like this, I will get all the documents related to Internet of Things. I can go to each and every one of them and I can pick up the important information. I can prepare my own presentation and I will present that presentation. If I want to search for different file formats, PPT, XLS, like that also, I can search here to get that information. So like file type, there are different search strings available from Google. I will demonstrate how to use them to get the required information about the target. Understand? So with those things, we will end chapter 2 by discussing some of the countermeasures that we need to take for not revealing any of our sensitive information. With that being said, we will close chapter 2 there and we will move on to the next chapter. Do you have any questions on chapter 2? If you have any questions, please type them in the chat. I will respond to them. Okay. Can I proceed to next one? Please type 1 if yes. Thank you, students. So the next chapter is scanning networks. To better understand the concepts that we are going to discuss in the further chapters, it is better to have minimum networking knowledge. If you are from CSE or IT background, you already have that knowledge. If you are from different backgrounds, you probably may not have that knowledge. You don't need to worry. Here in the network basics section, we will provide you the basic networking knowledge that you need to have to better understand the concepts. So I will explain what is network, how systems communicate with each other in the network, and what is protocol. Okay, what is IP address, what are different classes of IPs are there, what is OSI model, how it is useful. All different basic knowledge I will provide you in the network basic section. After that, we will move on to the main part of the chapter 3, that is live host identification in the network. Let me give you an example to understand this one. For suppose there is a colony and it has a lot of houses in it. If I want to identify how many houses are filled, how many houses are vacant, What I can do, I can go for records to identify the details. If I don't have access to the records, I will go to each and every house to identify whether it is vacant or whether it is filled. The same thing we also do in the network level to identify how many systems are live in the network, how many systems are shut down. For that purpose, we will use different tools that will work on different techniques. Here, I will demonstrate one of those tools. I will take help of a tool called NetDiscover and I will perform network scanning. So it will identify how many IPs are live in my network and it will provide those details like this as you are seeing on my screen. Like NetDiscover, there are many tools available that will use different techniques to identify these results. So while I'm explaining about live host identification, I will explain about those tools, how those tools work, and I will demonstrate them in a practical manner. Right now, we got the IP details related to the machines that are present in my network. So if I want to get further details related to that IPs, how can I proceed? Let's say in the previous example, you identified which houses are filled, which houses are vacant. In the filled houses, if you want to get more information like how many members are living in the house, okay, what kind of jobs they are doing, and how the house is structured. All this information, if you want to identify, what you will do? You will go to the owner and you will ask that owner to provide that information. If he is aware about you, he will provide that information. If he is not, he won't provide that information, right? The same thing we perform here also. In the port scanning section, next one, port scanning section, we try to identify more information related to our target, like how many ports are open and what kind of services that are running on those ports and what is the operating system the target is using. Like that, we try to identify different information related to the target. For that purpose, we use a tool called Nmap. This Nmap comes with a lot of options to perform different kinds of activities. So I will discuss about different options when I come through that section. Okay, let me demonstrate one practical here by using Nmap. Here, I would like to perform scanning on my target machine, Metasploitable 2. Here you can see, once I done performing scanning, it is giving the results like what are the open ports that are present on the target machine and what kind of services that are running on those open ports. So what kind of service that I have used right now and what are different other scanning techniques that are available to get different information about the target, I will clearly demonstrate them when I'm discussing about port scanning technique. Right? And at the end, we will discuss countermeasures that we need to take from our side for not revealing any kind of sensitive information in this form to the attackers. Okay, so how to make our system secure from providing this kind of information to the outsider threats, I will explain in the countermeasures section, and we will close third chapter there and we'll move on to the next concept, enumeration. Do you have any questions on this third chapter, students? Okay, if you want me to proceed next section, please type 1 in the chat. I'll proceed to next chapter. Thank you. So the next chapter is enumeration. This fourth chapter is like continuation for chapter 3 and extension of chapter 2. Why? Because in chapter 2, we try to collect information about the target by observing him from a far distance without making contact. But in enumeration, we try to collect information like going near the person and making a simple conversation with him to get more information. Okay, that's the difference between chapter 2 and chapter 4. In chapter 4, we use the information that we got from previous chapter 3, scanning networks, and we try to make active connections to the target machine. We try to collect more information. So in chapter 4, I will explain what is enumeration, what kind of information we try to collect about the target in the enumeration part. Coming to practicals, I will demonstrate what are NetBIOS and SMB services. If those services are configured or misconfigured or configured insecurely, so what kind of information they will reveal to the attackers, I will clearly demonstrate. And next I will move on to DNS enumeration part. Whatever the website that we visit online, so all those websites will have something called DNS servers. If those DNS servers are misconfigured, what kind of information they will reveal, I will demonstrate in the DNS enumeration section. For example, let me show you one tool. Let me demonstrate something here. Here I will take help of a tool called DNS enum, and I'll take my target as this website. If I press enter, it will go online identifying information about the target website. What is the IP address? What are the name servers? What are name servers and what are the name server related to target? What are mail exchange servers the target is using? It will give us information, and it will also try to get more information by performing something called zone transfer. While demonstrating about DNS enumeration, I will also explain you what is zone transfer. If zone transfer is allowed, what kind of information those DNS servers will reveal about the R nation. I will clearly demonstrate in the DNS enumeration part. Let me stop the tool here. So once our DNS enumeration part is complete, we move on to one of the most important topic, password cracking. Nowadays, if we take any service, it requires authentication, like providing username and password, right? For your service, you will know username and password, but for target, we don't know what username or password he is using. For that purpose, we need to crack those details. To perform password cracking, we need to have word list related to username and word list related to password. So how to generate word list, I will demonstrate by using tools like Quill and Crunch. After generating the word list, how to perform password cracking. So what are different password cracking techniques are there, like brute forcing, dictionary attack, syllable attack, and I will also demonstrate how to perform password cracking by using tools like Hydra and Medusa. So what are the different tools that are available in each and every tool, and how we can use these options as per our requirement. I will explain them in detail when I am discussing about that particular tool. Okay. So once password cracking is over, we will discuss some of the countermeasures that we need to take for not revealing any information from these kind of services like NetBIOS, SMB, DNS, or SMTP, FTP. Okay, how to secure the services for not revealing sensitive information related to us, and how to create strong password that will make that will make hackers to take longer times to crack those things. I will discuss them in the countermeasures section, and with those things, I will close enumeration part. Do you have any doubts on chapter 4? If yes, please type them in the chat. If you don't have any questions and if you want me to proceed further, please type 1 in the chat. I'll move on to next section. Thank you, students. Our next chapter is vulnerability assessment. Give demo on password cracking. Okay, sir, let me show you. Here, I am taking Metasploitable 2 as my target machine. Here you can see a smaller window. This one is the attack target machine. So right now I will perform cracking on that and I will show you the details. As I have told you, we need to have word list, right? Let me create word list. Like this, we will prepare word list based on, we will prepare a word list by assuming target may keep these kind of usernames for his service. And in the same way, we will also prepare password file. We will download different passwords, the weak passwords from the internet, and we will use those word list to perform password cracking. Right now, for just demonstration purpose, I'm just taking 4 to 5 words to make it easy. Okay. I prepared username and word list. So here I will take Hydra hyphen. If I execute, it will perform password cracking by using the word list that I have provided. If it identifies any matched username and password, it will display like this. So when I'm discussing about password cracking, I will discuss in detail how to create username and password list by using different tools. Okay. I hope you understand how to perform password cracking. Can I proceed to the next section? If yes, please type 1 in the section chart. Okay, sir. Is your doubt clear, sir? Okay. Let me proceed to the next section, vulnerability assessment. In the previous example, in the Karani example, let's say whoever the person who trying to identify the house's information, if he is a robber and he wants to perform robbery on one of those houses, then what he will do? He will go near the house and he will study it. He will try to find out any weaknesses that are present in his house, in that house, that will allow him easily enter into the house and easily complete his tasks. The same way, before performing hacking, attackers also will try to identify if the target has kind of weaknesses. We call them as vulnerabilities. So we'll start the session by discussing about what is vulnerability and what is vulnerability research and what is the importance of performing vulnerability research. After that, I will demonstrate you how to perform vulnerability research globally by using sites like cvedetails.com. Okay, these kind of sites will have a database of vulnerability information, and from these sites, we'll try to do manual vulnerability research, like finding out if there are any vulnerabilities present on the target machine, the services which are running on target machine. Okay, once we done that, we will move on to vulnerability assessment. I will explain what is vulnerability assessment and what is the importance or what is the use of performing vulnerability assessment. Here, we will take help of Nmap tool once again to perform the vulnerability assessment. Nmap comes with lot of scripts. We can take help of those scripts to perform vulnerability assessment on the target machine. So how to take advantage of these scripts to perform vulnerability assessment, I will demonstrate, and next we'll move on to discussing about a special tool called Nessus. Nessus is a vulnerability assessment tool that is mostly used by many organizations all over the world, and it is very costly to purchase. But fortunately, a community edition of Nessus is available, so we can freely download Nessus and we can install that and we can perform vulnerability assessment. How to perform those activities, I will demonstrate in the classroom. How to download Nessus, how to get activation key for Nessus community edition, how to install it, and how to perform vulnerability assessment by using Nessus, I will demonstrate. Once vulnerability assessment is done, we need to create report. As I have discussed, as an ethical hacker, it's our duty to create reports once vulnerability finding is over. So we need to create report based on to whom we are going to submit that report. So what are different kinds of reports available and how to generate those reports in Nessus after performing vulnerability assessment, I will demonstrate in chapter 5 vulnerability assessment. Right? So with those things, we will end chapter 5 and we will move on to next chapter. If you have any doubts on this part, please put those questions in the chat. I will respond to them. If you don't have any questions and if you want me to proceed further, please type one in the chat. I will proceed to next chapter. Thank you, students. So our next chapter is system hacking. Up to the 5th chapter, we have seen how to collect information about the target or how to identify vulnerabilities in the target machine. In this chapter, we are going to use all that information to take control over the target machine. Here is where we perform actual hacking. Okay, here is where the fun becomes double and it will create a lot of interest. Why? Because in this chapter, we perform our hacking or take control of the target machine and we do different activities on the target machine from our machine itself. Okay, in this chapter, I will explain what is exploit, what is payload, what are different payload and exploits are there. Okay, the theory part. And coming to practicals, I will demonstrate a special tool called Metasploit Framework. Metasploit Framework is a open source exploitation framework tool that contains lot of exploitation modules and how to find out the required exploitation module based on our vulnerability. I will demonstrate while I'm discussing about this tool. Let me demonstrate one practical here. Let's say I have identified my Windows 7 machine has a vulnerability called Eternal Blue. From the vulnerability scanning, I have identified that. So how to take advantage of vulnerability to take control over Windows 7 machine? Right now, I will demonstrate that. So I will search for the vulnerable exploitation module. I will configure the required options for this module to exploit that vulnerability on the target machine, and I will run the exploit. You don't need to worry about what are these modules, why I am using these options. I will explain them clearly when we discussing things in system hacking chapter. So if the target machine is vulnerable to this particular vulnerability, it will definitely give us reverse connection from the target machine. If you see here, I got connection from the target machine, that is Windows 7. If I look for sysinfo, the connection is from Windows 7. If I enter help, it will show us different options that will allow us to perform different activities on the target machine from our parent machine. Okay, each option gives us different attack, different activity. Okay, so how to use these options, I will clearly demonstrate when I'm discussing about Metasploit. We can watch target from his webcam, or we can monitor his screen continuously from our machine. If I execute screen share, it will give us a web access to continuously monitor his machine. So I need to open this URL in the browser to continuously monitor the target system. Let me open the URL and show you. The URL is USQM. So this is the one. So you can see here, I am currently watching target's desktop. If I open anything on the target machine, it will reflect that on the attacker machine like Parrot also. Give it some time. Based on the network speed, it will respond. On the Windows, I opened Firefox. Let me show you here also.
Muted.
Maybe it is responding slowly, but it will definitely respond. So like that, there are different options available for us to perform different kinds of activities on the target machine. So I will explain each and every one of them, okay, while discussing about Metasploit framework. We do these practicals both in the LAN level and WAN level. Means if the attacker and target both are on the same network, how to perform these practicals, and if the attacker and the target both are on different network, how to perform these practicals, I will demonstrate in both ways. Next, we will move on to a next concept, privilege escalation. Privilege escalation means elevating our privileges from normal user to super user, like from normal user to administrative user or root user. How to elevate our privileges? I will demonstrate that by using Metasploit framework. After that, we will move on to the next section. Do you have any doubts on this particular chapter, system hacking? If you have any doubts, please put them in the chat. If you don't have any doubts, if you want me to continue, please type one in the chat. I will proceed further. Okay. So the next concept is malware threats. In our daily life, we will use different applications or different softwares to perform different activities. Some of them are free, some of them requires to purchase premium, to purchase to access premium features, right? So if you don't want to purchase premium features, or if you don't want to subscribe for the services, still if you want to access premium features, what is the option you will look for? Go online and search for the crack or keygen, download that and install it in your system to access premium features of that particular software, right? So attackers take advantage of that and they will create malware. They will attach malwares to those keygens or cracks and they will release them in the online. So once you believe that as a original software and download that into your system and install that in your system, they will start behaving differently. Okay, they will make your system getting slow. They will open unwanted pop-ups. Sometimes they will redirect genuine websites to some malicious websites. Okay, these are all the behaviors of malware. So in this particular chapter, I will explain what is malware, what are different types of malwares are there, like virus, trojan, ransomware, and how they will behave once they enter into the machine. I will clearly explain them. Once the theory part is over, in the practical section, I will demonstrate you how hackers create these kind of malwares by using different platforms. So here in our section, I will demonstrate them by using MSF Venom. There is a tool called MSF Venom. It is also part of, let me close that. You can see here, it is showing web browser open, but it took longer time. Let me close this one first. Okay. So we have a tool called MSF Venom. This is also part of Metasploit framework. It comes with a lot of options that will enable us to create malwares for different platforms like Windows based malwares, Linux based malwares, Mac based malwares. And we can also create language based malwares like C language, Java based, Python based, etc. So how to use this tool as per our requirement, I will demonstrate them in the malware threats chapter. Once that is over, we'll move on to a concept called persistence backdoor. What is persistence? Once we took connection from the target, if we shut down his machine, we will lose the connection. If we want to get the connection back from his machine, once he restarts his machine, what do we need to do? I will explain in the persistence concept. So how we can make ourselves to get reverse connection from the target machine even though he restarts his machine. I will demonstrate that by using Metasploit framework in the malware threats chapter. Once that is over, I will demonstrate a GUI based graphical version of RAT application. RAT means remote administration tool that will allow us to create malware and to take reverse connection from the target machine. It will give us a lot of features that we can perform on the target machine. So all those things I will demonstrate by using a tool called Dark Comet. And at the end, I will discuss countermeasures that we need to take, how we can check a file whether it is malware or not. Okay, what are different sites, services available for us to perform that activities. I will demonstrate in the countermeasures part, and I will also demonstrate you how to check whether your system is infected with malware or not. With those things said, I will close chapter 7. If you have any questions on chapter 7, you can ask them. If you don't have any questions, please type 1 in the chat. Okay. Okay. The next chapter is sniffing. Module 8, sniffing. In our daily life, we will visit a lot of places like cafeteria, shopping malls, or parks. Okay. Nowadays, all these areas are having its own Wi-Fi networks. Some of them are open, right? So to get internet access, we will connect to those networks and we will use different different services. If these networks are not properly secured, okay, what kind of attacks that attackers perform and what kind of information they will try to steal from you, I will discuss in sniffing chapter. So I will demonstrate practicals by using an attack called man in the middle attack. So I will demonstrate that one both in manually and by using an automated tool called BetterCap. Let me demonstrate one thing here, how attackers perform those activities in the network level. They will take help of an application called Wireshark. It is a network traffic patching tool. So what is Wireshark? How to use this Wireshark and what kind of filters that we can use to get the required information from the internet traffic. I will clearly explain you in the Wireshark basics. So on the attacker side, he started Wireshark and let me go to my target machine Windows 7 and if he tries to sign in for the service by providing username and password. On the attacker side, he can collect that information by using his Wireshark tool. By applying a simple filter, he can look that information. Wait a minute. Let me try once again. So here I can see lot of information related to the query that target made. So from this information, I can look for the sensitive information related to the target, and somewhere I can be able to find the username and password that are provided by target. Like this, attackers perform different kinds of attack activities on the network level to identify sensitive information that you are providing for different services if you are using unsecured communication. So I will demonstrate those things in this sniffing chapter, and I will also cover Wireshark basics, what is Wireshark, how to use that Wireshark, and I will also demonstrate how to spoof your MAC ID, what is MAC address and how to spoof your MAC address. I will demonstrate. With those things, I will close the practical part and I will discuss some of the countermeasures that we need to take for not revealing our sensitive information in the network level. Okay. With those things, I will close chapter 8 sniffing. Do you have any doubts on this chapter 8 sniffing, students? If you have any doubts, please ask them in the chat. If you want me to proceed further, please type 1 in the chat. Thank you for the response. So the next chapter of our course is social engineering. It is one of the most important and interesting chapters of CEH. Why? Because hacking is not completely related to using your technical knowledge or technical skills. It also involves with some kind of non-technical thing, right? So if you observe in the lockdown starting time, you may have heard about a scam called doubling your money. In that, attackers will send random messages to random people like, if you send some amount of money to me, within less time, I will double that money for you and I will resend that. Like that, they will send messages. If you receive that kind of messages, you will first think, okay, this seems to me like a scam, but I don't want to fall for these kind of scams. You think like that, but as a human, we'll have some human behaviors. Okay, so that kind of behavior, that behaviors will wake up and they will give you a suggestion like, why don't we, why don't you give it a try? If it is true, you will get your money double. If it is false, let's try it with smaller amounts. If it is false, you will lose small amount, right? Like that, it will, a kind of thought will arise and you will start doing that. So to check whether it is true or fake, first you will start with 10 rupees, and attackers are very intelligent fellows and they don't hesitate to lose smaller amounts of money, okay, to get bigger amounts. So what they will do, they will send you 20 rupees in return. Next, you will send 50 rupees, you will receive 100 rupees. Next, you will send 100, you will receive 200. Next, you will send 200, you will receive 400. Next, 500, 1000, 200. Like this, the continuation will happen. From all the above process, attackers will try to analyze your psychology. From the way you are playing this one, they will try to identify to which extreme point they can take you and they will drop you from there. Let's say from the above 4 and 5 steps, you got trust on the other person, and this time you dare much and you send 10,000 rupees and you are expecting to receive 20,000 rupees. As attackers receive that much amount of money, they will not respond to your messages or they will not respond to any of your calls if you make any. Okay, if you carefully observe the above process, nowhere in the process attacker used any of his technical skills or technical knowledge to perform the attack. He just took advantage of a general human behavior called greediness. Greediness means expecting more with less effort within less time. Okay, he take advantage of that behavior and he benefited that one. So that kind of attacks, we call them as social engineering attacks. So what is social engineering attack? What are different types of social engineering attacks are there, like phishing, wishing, tailgating, dumpster diving, etc. I will explain them. And coming to practicals, I will demonstrate you how to create a phishing page that will look like exactly like a original page. I will take help of different tools like NextFisher or Social Engineering Toolkit to create phishing page. Once I share that one, it exactly looks like a genuine page. Let me demonstrate that one here. Okay, when I'm discussing about social engineering, I will explain about this tool, what is this tool and how it works. So here is my target link. Uh, When I provide that link and make him believe I am a genuine one, once he believe me and execute the link in his browser, he can see the original login page. In the head, in the title part, it is giving us information like Instagram, and in the whole page, by observing the page, you can feel like it is a original page, and you think it is a original page and provide your information. On the attacker side, attacker will get information. You can see here on my terminal, I identified what is the IP address target is using, what are his account details. By using these details, I can log into his account and I can perform whatever the activities that I can perform on that attack. Okay, like that, how to create phishing pages by using different tools, I will demonstrate in the social engineering chapter. At the end, we will discuss the countermeasures that we need to take from our side to make ourselves secure from these kind of attacks. How to identify these attacks, I will explain them. Okay, that's all about chapter 9. If you have any doubts on social engineering, you can ask me. If there are no doubts, please put one in the chat. I'll proceed further. Okay, the next chapter is denial of service. Let's say in your home, you're watching your interested program. Suddenly, your parents came and they're not allowing you to watch that program. Instead, they switch you to a boring program that you shouldn't want your parents to watch that program. What you will do? You will go to your terrace and you will cut the cable wire to make them temporarily unable to watch that service or watch that program. Here, you are making the service is unavailable to your parents temporarily, right? The same thing hackers also will do in the cyber world. Whatever the things that we have discussed till now up to chapter 9 and the things that we're going to discuss in future, if none of them are working, the last option for attackers is denial of service to make the service unavailable to its legitimate users. So how they will do, we will discuss in the denial of service chapter. So what is DOS attacks? What is DDoS attacks? I will explain them. And what are different types of DOS attacks are there that attackers perform? I will explain them. I will demonstrate these DOS attacks by using tools like Metasploit framework, Ping, HPing3, Slow Loris. Okay, and I will also demonstrate by using GUI based tools like LOIC and HOIC. Let me show you how DOS attack will show effect on the targets. For suppose I have identified and my Windows 7 has vulnerable to DOS attack. I will take help of Metasploit framework once again to perform DOS attack. So once I run this module, Windows machine will start restarting. Let me open Windows. Here we can see Windows machine is getting restarted. Why? Because that much dangerous DOS attack is if target machine has any kind of vulnerability. Okay, so that is the impact of DOS attack. We will discuss them in the DOS attacks chapter, and finally I will discuss some of the countermeasures that we can implement on our side to make our system sustainable for this kind of attacks, and how we can try to block these kind of attacks. I will explain in the countermeasures part. That's all about DOS attacks. So the next chapter is session hijacking. If you have any doubts on DOS attack, you can put them in the chat. If there are no doubts, I'll proceed to the next chapter, session hijacking. Okay? Okay, let me proceed. So in the session hijacking, I will explain how the web application works when we access any service, and what is session and what is cookie, what kind of information cookie holds, and if this information is not properly secure, how attackers take advantage of that to control your account activities. I will demonstrate in the session hijacking section. So I will demonstrate session hijacking by using MITM attack. After that, I will also demonstrate how to check whether a web application is vulnerable to web session hijacking or not by using session management testing with the Burp Suite tool. Burp Suite is a web application testing platform. We will use that one to conduct different tests on web application. So by using the same tool, we try to check the web application is vulnerable to session hijacking or not. And next, I will also demonstrate if the web application is vulnerable to XSS, a web application vulnerability called cross-site scripting, how session hijacking can be possible. I will demonstrate that one. And at the end, I will discuss some of the countermeasures that the developer need to implement on his side to make the web application secure from session hijacking attacks. With those things, the chapter 11 ends there, and we'll move on to the next session. Do you have any doubts on session hijacking, students? If there are no doubts, I'll proceed to the next chapter, chapter 12, evading firewalls, IDS, and honeypot. Till chapter 11, we have discussed things in a offensive way, like how to collect information related to the target, how to take control over the target machine. After taking control, what kind of activities we can perform, we have discussed till now. Okay, but as an ethical hacker, we need to think in a defensive way also, how to secure our organization from those kind of attacks. So that defensive part we will discuss in this chapter 12, firewall IDS and honeypot. Let's say you are a soldier and you are in a war zone by holding a shield. The enemy group is attacking you with arrows. So how can you protect yourself? By using shield. If you don't know how to use the shield properly, what will happen? You will get killed within less time. Okay. The same thing happens in the cyber world also. These firewall IDS and honeypots are acts like a shield. We should know how to use them properly to protect or to defend our nation from the outsider attacks. That part we are going to learn in this particular chapter, chapter 12, firewall IDS and honeypot. In the theory part, I will explain what is firewall, what are different types of firewalls are there, and how they will work. And next, what is IDS, what are different types of IDS are there, what are their working mechanisms to identify the threats and to alert the administrators, and what is honeypot, how honeypot is different from the above two, I will explain. Next, coming to practical section, nowadays each and every operating system comes with its own firewall. Okay, Linux has its own firewall, Windows has its own firewall, Mac also has its own firewall. In Linux, we have a firewall called IP tables. So by taking help of IP tables, I will demonstrate how to write different rules on firewall to block certain traffic or to block certain IP address, to block certain port number, okay, like to block certain service. All these kind of things I will explain by taking help of IP tables, how to write rules in firewalls. Next, we'll move on to IDS section. In the IDS, we will discuss about a tool called Snort. Snort is a open source and free tool that will help us to identify the attacks that may perform on the network. So how to download Snort, how to install Snort in our parent operating system, how to configure it to identify any attacks that are being performed on our network. With those things, we will close IDS part and we'll move on to honeypot. Honeypot acts like a fake target in the R Nation network. So we'll take help of different honeypot softwares like KF Sensor or Pentbox to demonstrate this honeypot and how to configure this honeypot in our network. Okay. So with those things, I will end chapter 12 and I will move on to chapter 13, hacking web servers. Students, do you have any doubts up to chapter 12? If you have any doubts, please type them in the chat. If you don't have any doubts, please type one in the chat. I will proceed to next chapter. Okay. The next chapter of our course is hacking web servers. Daily, we will visit a lot of websites to get different information related to our requirements, right? Did you ever think like where this information resides, how we are able to access that information? If yes, here is the solution. Because of the web server only, we are able to access different web application or web services, and we are able to get information from the internet. So here I will explain what is web server and how this web server will work and what are different common misconfigurations or common vulnerabilities these web servers will have. I will explain them in the theory part, and coming to practical section, I will demonstrate how to perform footprinting on web servers. Means how to identify the web server details about target, what kind of service he is using, and how to perform vulnerability scanning on the web servers by using tools like Nikto. I will demonstrate. After the vulnerability scanning is over, the next section is web server exploitation. So we'll take help of the vulnerabilities that we have identified and we try to exploit the web server, and we try to perform different activities like identifying the sensitive information present in the web servers or uploading malicious softwares in the web server location, right? And sometimes once the hackers take control over these kind of web servers, what they will do, they will perform something called zone transfer. Means they will remove the original web page and they will host their own customized page, and those details they will publish in these kind of sites like zone-h.org. Here we can find out different sites information that hackers perform hacking on and take control over. If I click on mirror of any of these things, I can see the defaced site related to that particular website. Here you can see they removed the original web page and they posted their own customized page like this. Okay, they will post videos, they will post audios, they will post whatever the information they want to give to the outside world, etc. So how to perform defacement also I will demonstrate in the web server hacking. Next, we will move on to the next chapter of our course, web application hacking. In the web application hacking, I will demonstrate what is web application and what are OWASP top 10 vulnerabilities. Okay, OWASP is a non-profitable organization that will list out the major vulnerabilities that are present in web application that will create major damage to the organization. So what are those vulnerabilities? And in a practical manner, I will also demonstrate how to identify some of those vulnerabilities and what kind of damage they will lead to if web application has that vulnerability. I will demonstrate that. So first I will demonstrate how to perform vulnerability scanning on web application by using tools like Sparta or NetSparker or OWASP job vulnerability scanners. And once the vulnerabilities are identified, how to generate reports. After that, I will demonstrate different web application vulnerabilities like XSS, cross-site scripting, CSRF, cross-site request forgery, command injection, or path traversal attack, etc. Like basic vulnerabilities, I will demonstrate and I will show you how to identify those vulnerabilities. At that particular time, I will also explain you what are the countermeasures that we need to take to mitigate these vulnerabilities in the web applications. Okay, let me demonstrate one vulnerability here. I will visit alteromutual.com website once again. Here, web application will have lot of input fields through which users can input, user can send any input to the web application. So here I'm trying to inject a simple JavaScript into the web application, and I will try to look how the web application respond to that particular JavaScript. If I click on go, as you can see, it is giving me a pop-up by saying one. Whatever the script that I have provided, it is being executed. From this, I can understand like this particular website is vulnerable to cross-site scripting. Like this, I will demonstrate how to identify different web application vulnerabilities and what kind of damage they will create. I will demonstrate them. As these web application holds lot of information, to manage that information, developers use something called content management systems like WordPress, Drupal, Joomla. So if they used any of those, how to identify vulnerabilities in them, how to exploit them if they have any vulnerabilities, I will demonstrate by taking example of Drupal CMS. With that thing said, I will close chapter 14, web application hacking, and I will move on to next chapter. Do you have any questions up to this part? If you have anything, you can ask me. If there are no doubts, please type one in the chat. I'll move on to the next concept. Right? Okay. The next concept or next module is session. Okay. Sorry, SQL injection. This SQL injection is also web application vulnerability. Previously, it is also part of web application hacking. As it is, its area of expertise is increasing. It is included as a separate chapter. In this chapter, I will demonstrate. First, I will discuss what is SQL injection. What are different types of SQL injections are there, like authentication bypass or error-based SQL injection, okay, union-based SQL injection, like that. What are different types of injections are there, and how to identify whether web application is vulnerable to these kind of injection vulnerabilities or not. If it is vulnerable, how to get database information both in manually and by using automated tool like SQL map. I will demonstrate in the practical section. Let me show you the examples here. Here I will take help of Google to identify the websites that are vulnerable to SQL injection. As I have explained you, the Google Docs will help us get the required information. I'm going to use one of those Google Docs here. I got different results. I will visit one by one. So they are having logins forms. Okay, we need to provide username and password to access the service. But I don't know username and password. Then what will I do? I will inject a special string that will allow us to take administration dashboard access if it is vulnerable to authentication bypass vulnerability. So what is this string? Why we need to use this string? I will explain in detail in the SQL injection chapter. So here also I will try. You can clearly observe I'm not providing any username and password. I'm just trying to inject a special string. Okay, the first site has given me admin dashboard. In the title, you can observe admin dashboard. Here I can upload the files. If it allows, I can create users, I can remove users. But as a ethical hackers, we shouldn't do those kind of activities. If we are working for those organization, we need to report this vulnerability to the authorities and they will take necessary action. Right now, I'm closing that one. This website is not vulnerable. That's why it didn't give me access. The same thing here also. See the second website. This one also vulnerable to authentication bypass. That's why I got access to admin. Here you can see on the right hand side top corner TSA admin. Like this, we try to check whether the web application is vulnerable to different kinds of attacks or not. If it is vulnerable, we'll try to exploit them and we try to report them to the authorities. And at the end, I will discuss some of the countermeasures that we need to implement on the server side for not allowing these kind of vulnerabilities. With that thing said, I will end chapter 15 SQL injection and I will move on to chapter 16 hacking wireless networks. I think you all know how to use Wi-Fi's. You all know better than me, right? So I'm not going to discuss how to use Wi-Fi, but here I will discuss what is Wi-Fi and what are different popular Wi-Fi standards are there and what are different signal encryption mechanisms these Wi-Fi networks use like WEP, WPA, WPA2 and WPA3. And next, I will demonstrate in practical how to crack passwords for Wi-Fi networks. This will help you to test whether your Wi-Fi network is crackable or not. Okay, whether your Wi-Fi password is crackable or not, and to check whether your Wi-Fi network is secure enough or not. So in the practical section, I will show you how to crack passwords for WEP, WPA, and WPA2 modes by use in the both in manual method and by using an automated tool like Wi-Fi. With the practical steps, we will discuss some of the countermeasures at the end of the chapter and we will move on to the next chapter, mobile hacking. I need to give some more information here, students. To perform practicals, Wi-Fi related practicals from our VirtualBox Parrot Security OS, we need to have an external Wi-Fi adapter. So when I'm discussing about Wi-Fi practicals, I will also discuss that which Wi-Fi adapter is more suitable and where you can purchase that one. I will give that information also. Okay. If you have any doubts up to this part, you can ask me. If you don't have any doubts, please give me one in the chat. I'll proceed to the next chapter. Okay, students, can I proceed to next chapter? If yes, please type one in the chat. Okay. The last 4 chapters of our course are a little bit smaller compared to previous chapters. That's why we'll cover 2 chapters at a time. So the module 17 is hacking mobile platforms. This one also you know how to use mobiles. Okay. So I'm not going to discuss how to use them, but by using mobile phones, we can perform different activities. We can watch movies, we can listen movies. Okay, we can listen to music, we can perform bank transactions, we can log into different services, right? So while performing all these services, we need to check whether our mobile applications are secure or not, whether we are using genuine applications or any third-party malware applications. Like that, you need to check. Let's say you want to watch movies, you need to subscribe for Netflix or Hotstar Premium or Amazon Prime, right? In the same way, if you want to listen to music, you need to purchase Spotify or Ghana Pro services. If you don't want to purchase those services, what is the option you will look for? Going online and looking for the mod applications. If you search for Netflix mod, you will get a lot of applications. The same way, Hotstar mod, you will get a lot of applications. If you believe those applications are genuine one and they will give you services in a proper manner and you install those applications in your mobile, they will create lot of damage to you. Okay, why? Because that applications are not genuine, and they will come up with some kind of malware binded with them. So if you install those kind of applications in your mobile phone, you are creating damage to yourself. You are causing damage. So in this section, I will explain you how to create Android-based malware by using a tool MSFNM, the same tool that we have used in malware chapter. So by using MSFNM, how to create Android-based malware, and I will also demonstrate the same thing by using Android Jack RAT application. This tool also will allow us to create malware file, and it will also allow us to bind original APK with the malware file. And I will also demonstrate a tool called Evil Droid, how to create malware file and how to bind malware file with the genuine application that to make it like a original application. So how to do that activity, I will demonstrate in the hacking mobile application, mobile platforms practical section. Here I would like to give a disclaimer. If you are expecting us to teach hacking WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, and Telegram, sorry students, we cannot teach them. It is a basic course, and to hack those kind of services, it requires a lot of knowledge on programming, and you need to understand how source code of those applications is designed. Okay, that's why we don't discuss those hacking techniques in this course. If you are expecting those from us, I'm sorry, I'm very sorry. Okay, so that is all about hacking mobile platforms. Yeah, which program requires, sir? What does it mean? Can you explain it? Which programming required means? For WhatsApp hacking, you need to look for on by using WhatsApp built with different languages, sir. So you need to have minimum knowledge on those languages, and you need to have how to understand the code, programming code. So how WhatsApp works. So how it shares information with the other other side. So you need to understand all those concepts to perform hacking on WhatsApp. Basically, it develops on Java platform, any Android application. The minimum requirement is Java language, and they will use lot of languages to make their applications secure enough from these kind of activities. Okay, sir. Let me proceed to next module, that is IoT hacking. Nowadays, you may be listen to lot of smart devices like smart TVs, smart kitchen, okay, smart thermostat, smart cameras, smart watches, smartphones. Wherever you listen the word smart in the electronic devices, that comes part of IoTs. These devices collect a lot of information, and they will share that information with the servers. So if this information is not properly secured, what kind of attack activities it may lead to, I will demonstrate in the IoT hacking. So what are the default misconfigurations these IoT devices will have? I will explain them. And coming to practicals, we'll take help of an IoT device called Raspberry Pi. Okay, it is like a mini computer. It is an IoT device. So by taking help of this device, we try to understand what are different vulnerabilities these IoT devices possess, and if those vulnerabilities are exploitable, what kind of damage they will lead to, I will demonstrate them. These devices comes with an OS called Raspbian. We can download that OS from online, and we can load that OS in our virtual platform, VirtualBox. So how to install that OS in the VirtualBox, I will demonstrate. After installing it, we take help of that OS to understand IoT vulnerabilities and to exploit those vulnerabilities and to take control of the IoT devices. Right? And at the end, we will discuss some of the countermeasures that we need to take to secure our systems, like changing the default configurations, using secure services, secure communication channels, etc. Right? So our next chapter is cloud computing, chapter 19, cloud computing. In this chapter, I will explain about what is cloud computing, what are different types of cloud computing services are there, and what kind of vulnerabilities these services possess. Cloud systems are also nothing but normal systems, but they are located in somewhere in the data center servers. Okay, they will also possess the vulnerabilities like normal system will have. So we try to identify those vulnerabilities and we try to take advantage of that vulnerabilities to take some kind of control or to take some to collect some information related to the target. So what are those vulnerabilities? What kind of attacks we can perform on the cloud services? I will demonstrate in the cloud computing section. For that one also we'll take help of an open source cloud computing service provider called OwnCloud. We can download this one also and we can load that into VirtualBox and we'll try to understand the vulnerabilities that are present in cloud services, right? So that is all about cloud computing. Do you have any doubts up to this part? If you have any doubts, please type them in the chat. If you don't have any doubts, please put one in the chat. I will proceed to the next module. Thank you, students. The next and last module of our course is cryptography. Cryptography is all about making the communication secure. Let's say there are three friends and they are communicating with each other. But two of them want to communicate some information without making the third person knowing that information. What they will do, they will use some kind of code language that they both only can understand and the third person cannot understand that. The same thing applies in cryptography also. So we will use different techniques to make that happen, to share the information in secure way. If someone breaks that communication, they will not be able to read the information. So how to do that? We will see in the cryptography. So there are different cryptography techniques are there like encoding, encryption, and hashing. So what are these things? I will explain. And let me show you. There are different hashing algorithms are there. If I want to create hash for hacker, a word called hacker, how can I do that? By using MD5 sum, and there are hashing algorithms like SHA-1, SHA-256, SHA-512, etc. So what are these different hashing algorithms and what is the use of them? I will clearly explain you while I'm discussing about cryptography chapter. And I will also demonstrate what are different encoding methods are there. So what are different encryption types are there? I will demonstrate them. And I will also demonstrate how to create a fully encrypted hard disk by using a tool called Veracrypt. After that, we will move on to a special concept called steganography. In this steganography, we try to hide one file inside another file. Let's say if I want to hide this sample.txt, which is on my desktop, inside this JPG file, how can I do that? Let me demonstrate. I will take help of a tool called steghide to perform that activity. When I execute this command, it will create a new file that will exactly look like a original JPG image. Okay, let me open that one. This is the modified one, and this is the original one. Are you able to find any differences between these two? But they look like similar, but one of them is holding sample.txt inside it. Like that, we can try to hide information inside another file. How can I extract that one? For, First, let me delete sample.txt and I will demonstrate how to extract that one. You can see here sample.txt is extracted from this image. Like this, there are different tools available to hide information inside different kinds of files like JPG and PNG, WAV file, etc. We will discuss those concepts while discussing about steganography concept. Do you have any questions on this particular chapter, students? If you have any questions, you can ask me. Okay, if there are no questions, that is all the information related to the course content. Let me give some more information related to the course. So in this course, we will do a lot of practicals, and to perform those practicals along with me in a smoother manner, there are some system requirements. So these are the minimum system requirements that you need to have. A processor of Intel i3 5th generation or above one, minimum RAM of 4 GB or more than 4 GB. If you have more than 4 GB, that's good. If you have 4 GB, then also you can run Parrot operating system along with your host machine. If you are facing any issues while running those operating systems, you can contact us. We will provide you a light version of Kali operating system. By using that also, you can perform all the practicals that we discuss in this particular course. And you need to have minimum hard disk size of 80 GB. If you have less than 80 GB, you can take help of Kali light version to perform the practicals. So these are the minimum system requirements. And from our Hacker School side, we are providing some extra services to the students to help them to better understand the concepts that whatever we are teaching in this course. We are providing you online Skype support for a period of 6 months. In the first section of our course, we will provide online Skype ID through which you can contact our Skype support team to resolve any issues if you have while practicing, and they will be available for you Monday to Thursday and Saturday and Sunday. Friday is a holiday, so on that day they may not respond to your queries. You can contact them from timings morning 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. and you can avail these services for a period of 6 months even after course is completed. And each and every session of our course, which are advanced courses, if you want to pursue your career as a pen tester, you can opt for CPENT course. CPENT is like advanced courses. You can go for OSCP, etc. Right? And if you want to get job in what we can say security operations, you can go for SOC operations with IBM QRadar, etc. Or if you want to pursue your career in the what we can say forensics, CHFI course is there. You can choose that course also. First I completed CH, later pen tester. I didn't get, sir. First I completed CH, later pen tester. Okay. If you are saying first you complete CH, then go for pen tester. Okay, that's your question, sir. That's your opinion, sir. But if you directly go to pen tester, it is very difficult for you to understand the concepts. Why? Because all the basics are covered in CH, and in the advanced courses, they will look like you already have this basic knowledge and they will proceed to the advanced levels. If you attend for the CH course, you will get that basic knowledge and it will be easy for you to understand the concepts that we'll discuss in the advanced level courses. Right, sir? Got the point, sir? Any other questions, students? Already basic cybersecurity course completed in Edureka. So I'm confusing to take CH or pen tester. So if you already took the course and if you're already aware about the concepts that are all discussed there, and if you thorough about the concepts and you are very confident about those things, you can go for pen tester. That's not a problem. If you think about like I'm confused about those concepts, I want to get clarity and I want to better understand about those concepts, you can join for the CH course and you can later go for pen tester. Okay, thank you, sir. Sir, if I complete C class and I don't, yeah, if you want to get only the knowledge or hacking skills related to this topic, you can attend. There is no requirement like you should definitely go for the exam. Okay, you can just attend for the class and you can get skills in this domain. You can go for advanced levels. Yes, you can go for advanced classes. After attending for CH, you can go for advanced level courses without completing CH exam also. The knowledge is required, sir. Certificate will only give you like showcasing. Okay, you have knowledge on that particular topic. If you have knowledge, you can implement that anywhere. Okay. Any other questions, students? Yes, I will be the trainer. I will be the trainer for this course. Yes, I'm certified hacker. I'm CA certified. Okay, if you have any questions, students, you can ask. If there are no questions, that's all for today's demo session. No, sir, I asked you, you are Hacker School provide. Um, from our Hacker School side, right now we are not providing any certificate. Related to that, you can query our management, sir. Those are the people who will take care of that. We'll only deal with the classes. Is your question clear, sir? From where you do? From EC Council only, sir. I done CH long before. Right now, I'm carrying my certificate for every 3 years, updating that one. We have updated. Yeah, the certificate is valid for 3 years. At the end of third year, you need to update that one. If the duration is over, you need to take up the exam once again to get certificate. If you don't want to take up the exam once again, at the end of third year, you can pay the upgrade money amount and you can upgrade your certificate validation. Okay, students, that's all for today's demo session. I hope you all enjoyed the session. If you have any doubts, you can ask me. If there are no doubts, and if you want to leave the session, you can leave the session. I wish to see you all on the class. Thank you for attending this demo session.